Electricast.
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, unlocking the power of Thinkorswim, the award-winning trading platforms loaded with features that let you dive deeper into the market. Visualize your trades in a new light on Thinkorswim desktop with robust charting and analysis tools, all while you uncover new opportunities with up-to-the-minute market news and insights. Thinkorswim is available on desktop, web, and mobile to meet you where you are. It's built by the trading obsessed to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Lindsie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Lindsie Gaudet, and my next guest that I'll be speaking with today is going to be touching on a subject that I never knew about, and I'm really excited to dig into. My guest, her name is Lindsie Vizethann. Lindsie spent nearly 20 years working inside the traditional healthcare system as a nurse, where she was trained to treat symptoms with quick fixes and Band-Aid solutions. Like many healthcare professionals, she followed the protocols. She checked every box and believed she understood what it meant to help people heal. But everything changed when she became the patient herself. After receiving her own diagnosis, Lindsie began to see the gaps in the conventional model of care. While the system was excellent at managing symptoms, it often overlooked the deeper questions people were asking. Why is this happening? What is my body trying to tell me? And is there another way forward? Her healing journey didn't begin with another prescription. It began with a wake-up call and a new question. What if this isn't all there is? That question sent her on a path of exploring nutrition, mindful eating, nervous system regulation, hormone health, and the powerful connection between physical symptoms and the body's deeper signals. Today, Lindsie helps women move beyond a diagnosis by teaching them how to understand the messages behind their symptoms. She's the host of the podcast PCOS Unfiltered, where she has honest conversations about metabolic health, hormones, trauma, and healing beyond conventional approaches. Through her powerful 90-day coaching program, she guides women in rebuilding their relationship with food, supporting hormone balance, calming the nervous system, and creating sustainable habits that lead to lasting health. Lindsie, as I said, I am so excited to chat with you today about what you do and to dig into PCOS, which I'll let you explain as we get into our conversation. But first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited. I'm so happy and grateful that Bonnie, my incredible friend Bonnie Wilkerson, someone we're both connected to, introduced us because she's the reason that we got to talk in the first place. And I'm incredibly grateful because this month being about health and vitality, it's really important to me to do a series on health at the beginning of the year for every season. Because I think it's important that we really take care of ourselves every single day and just not allowing ourselves to put things on the back burner or to actually gloss over symptoms or things that are happening in our lives because, well, life is busy. So I want to get into the questions because there's so much to unpack. So you have spent 20 years inside a traditional healthcare system as a nurse. You checked every box, you followed every protocol, you believed that you understood what healing looked like, and then everything shifted for you, right, when you became the patient yourself. So can you take us back to that season? What was happening? What did that experience reveal to you about the gaps in conventional care? And how did it send you on a completely different path toward healing?
Yeah. So almost 20 years. So I was a nursing assistant actually before I became a nurse. There was a co-op program in high school that I was part of. And so I was even working 3 hours every day after school. I was working in the OR at the time. And then, carried that on all through college, went into right into nursing school, graduated and just jumped right in. And I left. I was primarily, most of it was in the ER for my nursing career. And I will say ER can be definitely a different beast. We're looking at more of the life-threatening things, but I still just always felt like something was missing. I'm like, why can we not help these people? Why do they keep coming back? Where's the breakdown? And in my mind at the time, because I was always the workout freak. I thought I ate well, overall healthy. Looking back, I do not believe that was the case. But I was like, these people just need to change their lifestyle a little bit, and got burnt out. I mean, just it was a lot of do more with less. I was in the management side of things when I left it. And I just felt like I couldn't even tell my team members to do some of the stuff that I knew wasn't possible. Less resources, more patient load, but also get them in, get them out as fast as you can, but also make sure that they feel like they're cared for. It just didn't make sense to me. And it was not fulfilling my passion of helping people, like when I got into it to begin with. So I was fortunate enough that when I stepped away from nursing, my husband and I opened a gym. We took a leap of faith and opened a gym and helped so many people through fitness, which was something that I was definitely passionate about, like I mentioned. But yes, in that journey, I became the patient myself, and I had my wake up call. It was actually during COVID, and I think looking back, that was definitely the tipping point. Like I said, there were probably many signals that I was ignoring for years, but COVID, I think, just set me over the edge. So we were closed. The gym was closed. We were actually up in North Carolina with my stepsons and my husband's family, and I was waking up every day and my hands hurt. I just had this joint pain in my hands. And I was like, the gym was a kickboxing gym. So I was like, I'm not punching a bag anymore. Like, why are my hands hurt? And at first I thought, well, maybe it's residual, from that. But then it continued. I got some bad migraines. I just kind of felt awful. Well, I ignored that. I didn't listen then either, even though things were getting worse. And then it was May of 2020. We had reopened the gym. And we were out with some friends having pizza, and I had like the worst stomach pain that I don't know, that I probably ever had, I guess, that I could never remember. And I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. My stomach was so bloated, uncomfortable. I did not go to the ER then, but like all I did was just kind of sit on the couch, curled up in a ball, and that seemed to help a little bit. But the residual from that kind of lasted a few days. But knowing what I knew, I was starting to put two and two together. And I was like, I think this might be a gluten reaction. I think I might have something going on with like gluten. My husband was going out of town for work. And I said, I'll just cut it out for the week and see. He's not there. I can just worry about me. And after like a day, I felt amazing. And so immediately I was like, okay, I just need to cut out gluten then. I'll be fine. And finally, I was still having the joint pain. Finally, in August, I decided I saw a functional medicine specialist actually, because I think knowing what I knew from my healthcare days, I was like, I don't want to go to a traditional specialist and be told it's heartburn or, just like given a pill for something. And I did the functional medicine route, and with more natural holistic healing, it does take longer, I think, to heal, but I would end up being diagnosed with celiac and lupus. It was not to a point where I had any organ damage. We kind of caught it in time. And if it would have gotten to that point, like, sure, I probably would have said, okay, maybe I do need to go the traditional route or do a blend of both. But we worked on my gut, but it was a huge wake up call. Like everything I thought I knew about nutrition and stress. That was the big thing, because that's why I said, like, I think COVID was a tipping point, but running my own business, was a whole other beast, even though it was something I was super passionate about, but it was its own entity. And then I think coupled with all the stress from COVID and the unknowns, it just sent me over the edge. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say I've been in remission now for several years. I get my checks every so often just to make sure, but I'm also so much more in tune with my body. A couple years after that, my mom had gotten sick, and I was, again, super stressed. I was traveling back and forth to help take care of her. And I knew my skin was inflamed, like, I mean, itchy, red, blotchy. Something was going on again. And sure enough, I was almost to that point. But since I'm so much more aware of like changes going on in my body, we were able to kind of catch it in time. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I love that. No, I love that you talk about
Mm,
that. One of the things I think is that I find very powerful about, again, the work that you do is that you have the idea that the symptoms are not our enemy. And I think
mm,
a lot of people look at like symptoms as being like, oh, yeah, they start to, I don't know. I feel like we live in this self-diagnosis age, because there's so much
a
online
little
that
bit.
people can like, they can do a few keystrokes. And I actually did a episode myself last week about like how your TikTok video is not your diagnosis, but a lot of people, and my husband included, I mean, he is the TikTok king. And he takes a lot of things that he finds at face value. And I try to say to him, like, yeah, that's somebody's story, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's yours. And you might have listened to like 20, 30, 40 different TikTok videos of people saying, yeah, I've had this symptom, and yeah, and they're all sounding so familiar or similar. But someone might not have the same thing, even though you found out like gluten was the issue. It could have been something completely different for
Mhm.
someone else. And so taking that at face value right away without like doing a little bit more digging, I think is important. And so I love the fact that too, that you are also talking about like symptoms aren't the enemy, that they're messages for us to like,
Yeah.
they're clues, right? And that I think is a really good reframe for women, especially how we've been taught to suppress, medicate, or even push through whatever our body's signaling. Like you even said, I had all of these things happening, and it's like
Yeah.
I ignored them, right? And
Yeah.
this is just life gets in the way, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
you're a nurse too, and not to say anything negative about having that background, but maybe because you're like, oh well, I'm a nurse, I would know, so maybe this isn't something to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you help your clients begin to listen to their bodies differently? And what becomes possible when they actually start to treat their symptoms as information rather than inconvenience?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you bring up such a good point, with the symptoms, especially with the traditional healthcare, because we're taught in traditional ways to suppress, those symptoms. So yes, I mean that's an excellent point with them being messengers. But yes, so for my clients, it starts with the nervous system. My main focus is nutrition when I work with my clients and making it a lifestyle, I should say too. So I teach them the techniques. We do start removing stuff at some point. They learn how their body actually feels, how it was feeling on that stuff and how they can feel. But even before we get to that point, we set a good foundation. So one of the biggest things, the first thing is just some simple breathing techniques. And you really tune into what's going on. And I do encourage them to do it around meals too. So, like a minute or so before they eat, and there's different techniques that they can use. They can just do some simple big inhale and exhale. But I do it myself, and it's amazing. Like, you just feel so relaxed. And then also, when you eat, you're able to, like, actually process and taste and the texture of the foods and realize, like, the amount that you're taking in during your meal. And sometimes we eat so fast, right? And then you're full before your brain even has a chance to catch up to what you're doing. But I feel like the breathing helps a lot. So I would say that's a big one. The other one is just kind of doing some inner reflection and some inner work. I encourage them to I don't like tracking so much, but there are times where we do need to track a few things here and there, like 2, 3 days at a time. So I encourage them not to track, we're not tracking calories, but you're tracking what you ate. Why were you eating it? What were you feeling in that moment? How did you feel before you ate it? With the first bite, the second bite, during, immediately after, hours after, maybe the next morning after. Because then again, they might notice some of those symptoms. So, is my energy like really off the next day? Am I eating because I'm stressed in that moment or frustrated or upset about something? And then how am I feeling after that? Or was I actually truly hungry and I ate a good meal, what I thought was a good meal, but now immediately after, am I bloated? Am I having, some discomfort? And like I said, is my energy down? What's going on? So I think just doing some reflection work. And again, it's not super time consuming. It could be for some people, they do like to journal and write it down. I've had clients that keep super detailed notes. And then others are like, that's just not my thing. but still getting it down in some form, whether that's in the notes in your phone or something, is still really good to do that. So that's probably the two biggest things that I do with my clients to get them to really start understanding and listening to what's going on in their body.
Yeah, well, going a little bit deeper into that, so you connect a lot of you connect things that conventional medicine tends to treat more like in isolation, like nutrition might be the one thing, or hormone health might be one thing, or nervous system regulation, trauma, and the relationship that we have maybe even with our food. Because I don't know, it just seems, and even growing up, I know like the relationship with food sometimes was externally motivated,
Yes.
like, oh, you have to be skinny, so I can't have that. Or if I have something and then I'm beating myself up for eating something
Yeah.
because now that just derails everything. So I'm wondering if you could just help our listeners have a better understanding of how all of these things are connected and why addressing just one without anything else, like especially they could all be interconnected. How that, if you're just only addressing one thing and you're not really getting to the root of it, how that often can lead to results that don't last.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, like you mentioned, the childhood experiences for sure. That is also part of some inner work too, because are they being rewarded with food? Was that how they were brought up? Was that a reward for everything? Sure, it's great. Like we can treat ourselves, but if that's the reward for everything, is that how it's going to be through the rest of their lives? Or yes, if somebody is told that they are too thin or too overweight or, whatever that might be, that can definitely affect them later in life as well. So yeah, I mean, that can all play a role with it. And remind me, what was the second part of that question again?
No, so it's like, so how, because we know that it can play a role, right? And so if we don't explore all of those things, if we don't address, like, if there's more than one thing, because again, people tend to say, oh, like, I'm stressed. So maybe it's one of the things I think you'd mentioned earlier in the beginning
Mhm.
was like, well, change your lifestyle. But maybe it's not just lifestyle related. Maybe there is an underlying medical condition that they're not aware of. And so, how does that not support them or actually support them long term if they're only looking at the one thing? And
Yeah.
so they're only like slapping on a band-aid is really
Yeah.
kind of like what the question
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I mean, so our traditional healthcare system is so specialized. And a lot of the times we only get a certain amount of time, limited time, with those practitioners as well. So yeah, I think especially like even with my podcast, the more that I learn from my guests and everything as well, I feel like a lot of it does come down to stress. And maybe that's stress currently in a situation, maybe that's stress from past traumas that have not healed. And so I think addressing I look at the whole person, but it's also not me. Sometimes, especially if they are going to a traditional healthcare provider, that's great because then I am able to kind of look at everything going on a little bit more. But I think ultimately it comes down to stress in the nervous system. Your body can't feel it can't heal. It can't lose weight if it's not feeling safe. If somebody is in that constant fight or flight mode, constant survival mode, it's prioritizing just the necessary, functions. And that's not how we should be living our life. Unfortunately, a lot of us are. We're not as active as we used to be. We're behind computers all day. We're stressed by all the things going on in the world, right? So yeah, I think that it comes down to a lot of the times with the nervous system, and that does get overlooked, especially when a lot of providers aren't talking to each other either, because like I said, they're so specialized, but then they don't talk to each other. Even the primary care, I'd love to say the primary care can be like the central one person for some of these specialists, but unfortunately, that's just really not how it works. And so I think for anybody listening, they really need to look at like what's their stress level, what's their life like, what's going on that they can really kind of take that first step to approach and then work with their physicians in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always feel like go in with the evidence, meaning like don't just go in and just say, hey, I feel like a certain way and expect to be told what you have. because it's not all, like you said, you might have a 15-minute appointment with your doctor. That's not enough time to go into everything.
Mhm.
But if you can actually go, I feel, go in with the evidence of what my experience is, like this is what I'm feeling. These are some of the symptoms that I can report to you. They started with this. I don't know. Maybe I started eating differently, and I just noticed that since I started eating this, things are changing for me. Whatever that looks like, being able to actually go in with information to help your doctor have an actual real starting point instead of trying to uncover it all. And then all of a sudden you have like 5 minutes left in your appointment and he or she has to try to get all of what
Mhm.
she's come to her conclusion, and there might be more questions. And so you don't have the time. And so it's really like now you have to schedule another appointment and you're closer to the answers that you're looking for. So I always feel like it's just going in with those questions, but going in with information, like
Mhm.
sharing with your doctor. For me, it's one of the things I found with my mom. She's much older now, like than before. I would think, okay, this could be what you're experiencing and maybe you're not really caring as much about having to go to the doctor as much, but now in her late 80s, I'm really encouraging her more to reach out to her doctor more when she has like specific ways that she's feeling, because she's telling me how she feels, but I'm not a medical professional. And I
Mhm.
always say to her, are you telling your doctor this? Does he know how this is what's going on? Are you asking him more questions of like, why is this feeling like this? I know one of the things that she's told me recently is like, oh, he's sending me another prescription. I said, well, why is he sending you another prescription? I said he should be wanting you to come in and talk to you and get like to see you specifically. And she'll say to me, "Oh, well, I asked him, can you give me a different medication?" And it's like it's not about just like, that band-aid solution. It's like get to the root of it so
Yeah,
that maybe you don't need to take all these medications. Maybe it's just a
exactly.
simple tweak. So I love that you really touched on that because it's not just about like one symptom or two symptoms. It's not just about symptoms, it's about how you live your life,
Mhm.
your cultural background even, because
Yeah.
we're living in such a diverse world now. People are, when you look at the United States and Canada, you have so many people that are like multicultural. It's so diverse.
Mm.
People are now trying other people's food. They're intermixing with like cultures. And so you might be one way growing up and then all of a sudden you're older. Like for myself as an example, I grew up having dairy as a staple in our home. And when I say dairy, I'm talking about like real dairy foods.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then growing up and developing a lactose intolerance in my early 20s. And so I was like very shocked that
Mhm.
that happened to me and not understanding what had happened. And there was just so many different things. But
Yeah.
one of the things I know that you did is you wrote a book. It's called Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. And I like that
Mhm.
title because it's an invitation for those of us who may have received a diagnosis to feel like that there's not just a ceiling to that, but there's an actual, like there could be what's possible for them. So, can you share what inspired you to write the book and what you most want your readers to take away from it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think what inspired me is it's the same thing I do like with my podcast as well, is just letting people know that they don't have to be stuck with this diagnosis and they don't have to be limited by a diagnosis. I do specialize in PCOS, but no matter what it is, you don't have it's not, a prison sentence. It's not a however you wanna say that, but that's my message, I think, across all of it. So I just wanted to give people, like, practical tools to kinda start on that journey. There's some education in there as well, because I feel like that's super important, and that's a lot of what I do as well. Like, before I can't just tell somebody what to do, or I could, but they're probably gonna do it for a little bit. They're probably not gonna stick with it. Like, I want somebody to actually understand what's going on in their body, why they're making this change, what's happening after they make the change. So there is the education piece to that, but then also just taking some steps. So I do talk about the nervous system regulation. I actually talk about it's something called German New Medicine, where different types of traumas can present as physical symptoms. So just something to open people's eyes. I mean, I talk about, sleep, and I dive more into nutrition and being your own advocate, like we were just talking about, and what that looks like for you, doing your own research. So I think that's my big message, my big takeaway. And I think there are different levels to that. Healing may not mean complete healing, complete remission. That may not be even possible for some people, depending on what it is. But I think you can heal to some extent. I think you can feel better to some extent. You can probably reverse your symptoms to an extent. There might be different like layers or levels to that. And so I just want people to know that you're just not stuck with this diagnosis of whatever it is, because I think that's a good first step as well, is just not accepting it and being your own advocate to start, knowing what else is out there, and whether that's my book or doing some other research to see which avenue you want to go down. Like that's great. But I think the message around it is, that there's more to it and you can heal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you started to mention it, and something, as I said, I didn't even know. I mean, I'm shocked that I don't know, but you started talking about PCOS, and it's one of those conditions that so many women are living with, and they may not even fully understand that they're living with it, or what it is.
Mhm.
And I guess, like I said, I wasn't something I was even aware of. So, can you explain what PCOS is, how it shows up in a woman's body, and why it so often goes undiagnosed or misunderstood for so long?
Yeah. So polycystic ovary syndrome is the long term for PCOS. There's two of the three criteria that you typically need to be diagnosed. The first one is cysts on the ovaries. The second one is elevated androgens, which are the male hormones, which we as women do have male hormones. We do produce testosterone, but it shouldn't be at the same level as a guy. And then irregular periods, primarily 8 or less per year, would be the other criteria. So usually two of the three criteria to be diagnosed. And if you notice, I mean, the name is polycystic ovary syndrome, like multiple cysts on your ovaries, right? But now you don't even need cysts on your ovaries to be diagnosed. A lot of that comes down to insulin resistance, which is fueled a lot of times by stress. So that's why
Hmm.
I say it always goes back to that. But it can show up, oh my gosh, it can show up in so many ways. It's amazing. And I've actually been some episodes that I have coming up on my podcast. I've been recording with women that have actually been diagnosed, and that's also part of what I do. I want people to hear their stories and how they overcame it. But I also want people to understand, just because it's their story doesn't mean it's your story, because as I talk to more women that have it, it can present in so many different ways. It's really, I don't know, it's unbelievable, really. The typical symptoms that you might see. So, well, and let me back up. So the numbers say like 12 to up to like 20% of menstruating women have it. I do believe there's probably more out there that are undiagnosed. I would venture to guess probably closer to 30% would be my guess. But a lot of the times, 80% of those that have it are also overweight or obese, particularly with the weight around the midsection, that just stubborn weight that will not go away they feel like no matter what they've tried. Because of the elevated male hormones as well, they can present with facial hair on the back as well, like all those kind of male, patterns that we as women don't see, at least not on that level. Thinning hair on the top of the head is another one. Mood swings, chronic fatigue, just again, feeling like you're tired all the time. No matter what you do, nothing can give you the energy you need to get through your day. And then what do? You turn to coffee, right? Or any energy drinks or something. But yeah, you just feel like you don't have the energy to really do what you need to do. Those are probably some of the biggest things. I mean, I think for me, I I chose PCOS as a specialty, as my niche, when I decided to. I was like about a year into health coaching,
Mhm.
and I was like, I really need to drill down. I was like, who really needs me? And to me, when I started doing the research and also going back to my nursing days, I was like, this community, I think is, yes, like you said, unheard, misdiagnosed. I know from the ER, we would see these women, a lot of them dealing with like body image issues because, again, you have the hair on the face and you're just, your relationships suffer, your jobs suffer, anxiety, depression, all of that stuff. I would see it from the ER side. So, yeah, so I decided to go into specializing in women with PCOS. I think it does get missed so often because it presents so differently. There's also women that are thin and they might get told they have cysts on their ovaries, but like that's it. They don't really hear a diagnosis of PCOS. So I think that's part of it. I think the other piece is I think physicians just, maybe it's changing now, but I think they weren't actually really trained in that. I think because maybe it wasn't as prevalent, way back when, and now we are seeing a lot more cases of it. So I think that's also kind of how it gets missed. And then they also don't know what to do. I hear a lot of women just say, the doctor told me eat less, move more. No specifics as to how to do that. And that just also doesn't work for a woman with PCOS a lot of the times, because then you're restricting, that's stressing you out more. If you restrict too much, then again, your body is still in that survival mode, so it feels like it's got to just do what it needs to do. It's got to prioritize those functions, and it can't actually do what it actually needs to do to heal beyond a diagnosis. So yeah, it's amazing the stories that I hear, the presentation of symptoms from so many different. I mean, I've heard painful periods. I think another big one is the rapid weight gain. Like I said, they have trouble losing it no matter what they do, but also rapid weight gain, kind of unexplained rapid weight gain within a short amount of time. So there's lots of layers to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you started talking a little bit about your podcast, which is PCOS Unfiltered, and
Mhm.
it's where you're having conversations about metabolic health, hormones, trauma, and healing that, again, so many women have never had access to before because, like I said, and you just said it right now. A lot of women don't even know this exists. I'm one of them. And I've gone my whole life not even knowing that this existed.
Mhm.
So, what made you decide to create the platform? And what do you find women are most hungry to hear that they're simply not getting anywhere else?
Yeah. So I will say it's evolved. So today was actually episode 85 that went out. So I'm going on almost a year. But my goal was just to spread the word of hope and healing, kind of like I mentioned, when I was talking about my book. And so I did start off kind of more traditional. I was doing some solo episodes, which I do kind of sprinkle in sometimes here and there as well, but where I'll like dig deeper into insulin resistance, or I've done an episode on breathing or, breakfast foods and that type of thing and the importance of breakfast. But then, yes, I have episodes where I have guests of all different modalities. I've had somebody that was a feng shui expert actually, and how, your environment and how things are placed and what's under your bed and in how your knives are on your kitchen, like can actually affect the energy around you and your healing. I've had more traditional, I've had a functional medicine specialist on there. I've had other fellow health coaches actually, Carrie, that you probably, I think you met through Bonnie. I've had Bonnie
Hmm.
on there, just other alternative therapies. So part of my goal with it is to introduce some of these alternative therapies to people and let them know what else is out there that can help them heal. And whether that means, if that's what they want to solely focus on, if they're going that route, that's fine. But also, if they are going the traditional medicine route, then they can complement that with all of these different things. I share, like I mentioned, I don't know, I went through this spurt. I've done this spurt recently. They're to be released yet, but I've been recording them with women that have healed beyond their own PCOS diagnosis and what that experience was like. But then I've also had other guests on there that are not really PCOS related. And that's why I say it's kind of evolved, because I've had one of the more recent ones is a guy actually that I've known for several years now, but he was on this amazing weight loss journey, close to 400 pounds, and just everything that he did along the way. But I think the biggest piece of that was his mindset. along the way, but he also does kind of tie in how it affected even his wife. So that was great, but it wasn't a super PCOS specific, episode. I had another guy that had a brain tumor and he had it removed and it left him paralyzed on one side of his face, lost his hearing. But again, the mindset through it all. And I think that's super important for somebody dealing with PCOS or really any diagnosis. I think that plays such a huge role in it. And so, yeah, I mean, there's episodes that I see. I don't know. I feel like in general, the listeners are just kind of listening to it all. I don't know if there are more PCOS specific ones, but I feel like they're kind of hitting them all in general because there's still the theme of overcoming something throughout. I think all of them being your own advocate, as well. That's another big theme, like we kind of talked about. So,
Yeah. No, but I love that. And one of the things that I really love is that you brought in the male voices.
mhm,
I often get pitched for men to be on the show. Now, I've just specifically said this is a woman's podcast for other women. So it's women's voices. But I love the fact that, from the perspective of health, men have a different journey, but they have experiences like maybe this could be helpful for your
mhm,
community that, hey, like my husband's going through something. I don't
exactly.
understand it. And coming from that perspective. So I love that you do that.
Yeah.
I have a final question for you. So you have a 90-day coaching program where you guide the women that go through your program to rebuild their
Mhm.
relationship with food, supporting hormone balance, calming the nervous system, and creating habits that actually last. So for the women that are listening in today, what would you want them to know about what's truly possible for their health and what's the first step that someone can take right now to begin moving from simply managing their diagnosis to genuinely living, healing, and living beyond it?
Ooh, I mean, I think anything is really possible for your health. I do. I truly, truly believe that. And it's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be some ups and downs along that journey, but I truly believe like no matter what it is, you can overcome it. And I think a lot of it starts up here as well. I had a mentor a couple years ago that started introducing me to all that stuff, and I saw the breakdown even, from the gym. Like I always thought, like, why can some people see results no problem? Why can some people not keep results? Why do some people not get any results? And I think a lot of it does start with the belief system. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is letting people know that you can do it. You just have to like change a pattern, take the first step, to get there and understand that it's not going to be simple. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But if you start doing just a little something every day, you can make a big difference. And I think that first step, I think do like it is truly, like I mentioned earlier, taking some deep breaths, just relaxing for a second, and maybe if it's not deep breaths, maybe if you have kids and a career and a husband and, all these things in your life and other stressors, maybe it's just taking a couple minutes for yourself to really do something for yourself because that's also going to help kind of calm you down. Maybe it's putting on some music for just a couple minutes, stepping away from everybody. But like I said, the deep breathing is great, but I think the first step is really focusing on the nervous system and calming the nervous system. And there's even times where I think like I'm not stressed, I don't really have much going on, but I think when it comes down to it, I internalize a lot of stuff. So that looks different, for everybody. And so I have to like take a step back and say, hey, like what's going on? And I do need to get back maybe into a routine of taking some time for myself. Yeah.
Totally agree with you. And like just getting back to that mindset thing, it's like really not only what we believe, it's what we make it mean about us,
Mhm.
right? And so there is that catch 22 of like I have this belief system, and maybe I inherently know it's not true, but I'm still making it mean something about myself, or even making it mean something about myself because I'm even thinking about it. So
Yeah.
Lindsie, I have to say this conversation exceeded way beyond what I expected it was
Oh.
going to be. I had high hopes and I really truly did because I was so interested in what you do. And especially again, because I didn't know some of the like what you were talking about, like when it was like PCOS. Oh my gosh, like what is that? And then when you went further and it's the polycystic right?
Yes.
The
Cystic.
polycystic ovary syndrome,
Yes.
and not even understanding, like, what that meant. So I really loved learning about that. I've also feel like what you've done is not just build a coaching practice or that you've written a book or that you host a podcast or that you've created an entirely different way, a beautiful
Mhm.
ecosystem for women to understand themselves and their bodies. I feel like that sometimes is a very rare combination, very rare for us to find spaces for that because a lot of the time we don't talk about our bodies. It's almost like it's become taboo to talk
Yeah.
about these things. And I also love the idea that our symptoms are not something for us to silence, but something for us to listen to. And again, you're speaking my language when you talk about these things about nervous system and
Mhm.
mindset, all of that. And I know again, like what you shared today is really going to change. I think the way that women are are showing up for their own health from this day forward. Like I truly believe that. And so I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for the way you show up for the women that you serve daily, for your clients, and for taking time to come on the show today to really share your expertise. It's been a real pleasure for me having you on the show.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Lindsie directly and learn more about her 90-day coaching program, her book, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, and her podcast, PCOS Unfiltered, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, somewhere along the way, you were taught that your body was the problem. But what if it actually has been your greatest guide all along? And what if every symptom, every signal, every moment of feeling off was simply your body saying, hey, I need you to pay attention? Because you're not broken. You never were. You just needed someone to remind you to listen so that you finally hear your body has been trying to tell you. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Welcome to another season of Crypto with Kamal on Electricast, where we explore the future of money and how digital assets are reshaping our world. I'm your host, Kamal Hubbard. Web3 is not just a buzzword, it's a movement that empowers you, your family, and community. So if you're passionate about financial technology or just want to stay ahead of the curve, make sure to tune in and subscribe to Crypto with Kamal wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Baklaan.
And I'm Eden Alpert.
We're back with a new season of the Unapologetically Fab podcast, where we're all about living your life by your own design.
From family to business to friendships, we bring on great guests to explore living with intention and passion at any age.
So you fabbers, young and old, listen in as we redefine success and embrace life without apologies.
Please join us on Unapologetically Fab, an Electricast production.
See you there.
Electricast.